that and some scared stuff. But you want my name? We'll go name first. Yeah, I'm Brandon Armstrong, and I guess this is my story. I think growing up, I guess I'll start there. When I was young, I guess my earliest reference of anything close to church or God or anything that resembles that would be my grandmother that would introduce us to church. Parents, I didn't have a background in that at home as far as going to church, but I did go with my grandmother a lot, and I think that was my first introduction early as a child. But I think I pretty much stayed away from it just based off of introduction to it or anything, just being absent from any form of religion or Christianity or anything you want to call like that. But this is what I did have, is that growing up early, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, for whatever reason, man, I always remember praying this prayer at night. And it was always about, God, forgive me for everything bad that I said and everything bad that I thought. And I remember going over that prayer all the time, and nobody ever coached me or taught me how to pray. I just felt it deep inside, and I guess that was the beginning of noticing the steps of how God draws people to Him and not people trying to get to Him. And so I guess early on my story goes that I would spend endless nights just terrified in my bed, awake at night, early into the morning trying to get ready for school, but couldn't sleep because of this fear of death. And I wasn't some bad, awful guy, even going all the way up through high school, but at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 years old, I can remember being like just relentlessly tormented with thoughts of death and what comes after this life, and how am I going to exist, and will I exist? Will there be anything? And so my earliest experiences and remembrances of how my life is basically just filled with the unknown, the dread of the future, and just endless procrastination and fear gripping existence to where it paralyzed me from wanting to do anything or knowing what to do. And so the story goes that when I get to 17 years old, my senior year of high school, I meet this young lady and ended up having several months of conversation with her, and I end up going to church with the young lady. And I'll never forget it. I go to her church, and her dad was a pastor, still is, and we go to this Sunday night service, and he's preaching this fiery message. I can't remember what he said. All I know is at the end, there's this plead to come to God. Now, leading up all these years and even through those months with this young lady, I continued to feel this pulling and drawing just to know this unknown God and just to discover what I couldn't quite wrap my mind around, or the answers that I didn't know. I was trying to find answers to just my own personal life, to what's it going to be like afterwards, and what am I going to do next year, that kind of thing. And so I go to this service, and at the end of it, he's got this fiery end message and come to Jesus and all of that. And I don't get up, I don't move, I don't do anything. But what I did do was I went home that night. And when I went home, I locked myself in my bedroom. And for the next few hours, I was having the greatest life-changing encounter with what I know is Jesus Christ. And it was weeping, and it was a plea for Jesus simply, God, please save my life. I don't want to be in this type of world anymore. And the world was the way I was feeling, the way I was perceiving, the things that I had. And basically it was nothing more than what I can see now as hopelessness and faithlessness, you know. And so that's where I was living, in that type of world where there was no hope and there was no expectation toward a future end or anything like that. And in that moment, at that night, my life was radically changed, because in my bedroom on a Sunday night around 10 o'clock, all the way into the midnight hours, I cried and I wept and I just pleaded, God, save me. And what He was doing was turning and changing me then. And so that's what happened at 17. And from 17 on, now I recognize the impact that it's had on me is that from that moment, I noticed that everything changed and shifted, and there's been this craving to know God, to honor God, because I recognize He made me, and that there's something here for me to do. And what's fascinating, man, is this is what got me, bro, is when He saved me, I started finally realizing that God really saves what's valuable. And what's valuable is not, you find out what you're worth not by the price tag on something or what somebody says you are. You know how much you're worth by how much someone's willing to pay for you. That's what determines value. And when you found out, and I found out, that God valued me so much that He'd give His life for me, that changed everything. That's when everything started turning, as I started recognizing, man, I know I'm a bad dude, but on the flip side, I must have been a bad dude that God loved a whole lot and made me for a certain reason. And now the journey has been searched to discover and fulfill it. And so over the last 17 years, man, it's simply been a honoring of God and preaching His gospel and sharing His love and serving a community and helping other people discover God and discover themselves. And I think that's what's been fascinating is I've been able to know this unknown God from my youth. And now I can know Him, and He's allowed me to know myself better. That's powerful. That's a big deal. That's my life. Yeah. That's what I got, man. That's big.